Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here. Today I'd like to talk about an article that I read about on how to build your pressing power, written by George F Jowett. Now this particular article really highlighted what I thought was some very important points in building up your pressing power, in that it highlights the limitations of the barbell press. This is something we will discuss, as well as addressing the limitations of the barbell press, that is the movement itself. The article also discusses the limitations in your posterior chain and how they lead to your pressing power. And finally, the tools that can be used to enhance the barbell press, to actually get your numbers up in respect to the weight that is used. So let's get straight into it. Now, the two hands barbell press, otherwise known as the military press, is a very strict movement that requires a lot of power, especially deriving from your delts and arms. Therefore, because the movement is so strict, the progress in actually having an increase in poundage is very slow. So the sticking point generally is around the forehead, or just as it passes over your head, and this mainly is attributed to weakness in the arms. It is unlike the snatch or the clean and jerk, which are both Olympic weightlifting lifts. These, with the aid of the legs and the hips and posterior chain and your lower back, basically, all create a momentum, and this momentum allows you to snap the weight up overhead. Basically, this is completely unlike these movements. The military press is too strict, and therefore this is why progress is so slow. Now, the four factors that affect your pressing power actually can be grouped by the actions of the muscles that are involved in this movement. And so when we look at the anatomy of the back, we can actually see what's going on here. Firstly, the pressing power of your arms is a major limitation, especially the triceps. Secondly is the power of the deltoids. Of course, from the deltoids, one requires support from the upper back. And finally, stability, which should be provided by tensing, almost isometric contraction of the lower back and legs. When all of these are in perfect symmetry, synchrony, the pressing power is more efficient. But the weakest link will obviously be when one of these four factors is disabled. Now, George F Jowett actually gives a very interesting comparison here, and actually really opened my eyes when I read this. Now, the barbell shoulder press actually used to be an Olympic weightlifting lift, and I'm aware of this, but when he emphasized it in this article, it really made sense. The snatch and the clean and jerk made up the other two Olympic weightlifts. Now, of course, if you look at the Olympics, they only do the snatch and the clean and jerk because the shoulder press was removed. But back in the day, and I'm talking about during the bronze and even I believe the silver era, when the military press or even continental press was part of the Olympic weightlifting lifts, if you look at the numbers of each athlete, it always used to have the lowest poundage, and therefore was the weaker of all lifts. And again, it's got to do with the fact that it has to be done strict in some rules, and others, when it was continental, not necessarily. But nevertheless, it was one of the weaker lifts. Another issue is that with a barbell, there is not much variety that one can do in training the deltoids. I mean, another variety, of course, is behind the neck pressing, which is not that too different to the military press. So he actually recommends using dumbbells, mainly because they offer so much a variety of exercises that barbells simply cannot for the shoulders. One really important thing is because the progress in poundage is so slow, he actually recommends, even back then, using microplates. Now, if you look on the internet, you can find, for example, magnetic microplates of all kinds of sorts. I actually own the PlateMate, as shown in this diagram here, which actually sticks very well to hex plates and normal dumbbells that are metallic, of course. And using microplates, one can increment very, very tiny amounts of weight of as low as 1¼ pounds or even lower. I think that now even lower poundages are available. And so in using these small increases in poundage, you can slowly build up your ability to use poundage, to use higher poundage over time. Now, I really enjoyed the exercises that he described in the article. The first being the barbell front raise, which I've already discussed in a previous video, but here it is done with a pronated grip. Now, a really interesting exercise that was mentioned was something that I don't think many of you may have heard of, and that is the press forward and raise overhead, which is shown in this second diagram. By the way, the model is called George Boulanger, Mr. Canada of 1949. He had a very aesthetic physique, and I'll probably cover him in another video. Now, this press forward and raise, as you can see, George has the barbell right in front of his chest, and he actually, in a standing position, presses the barbell outward like as if he would be doing a bench press, and from there, in one swift motion, after pressing out with arms extended, he actually then raises the bar overhead. And of course, George F Jowett says that for both of these first two exercises, using a barbell, you would have to be limited to low poundage, but they really do increase a lot of the shoulder mass and strength in the shoulder girdle. Another one that he actually mentions is the one arm dumbbell press, especially if you have a disbalance in either side of the body in regards to the pressing ability of the arm or the deltoid. Of course, the one arm dumbbell press is a great exercise to simply find out if you do have a misbalance. Finally, the last three exercises he gives are dumbbell pressing behind the neck and really squeezing, as you can see in that diagram, the upper back, especially the trapezius, and pressing behind the neck and lifting the dumbbells all the way until they touch overhead. The alternate press is another interesting exercise, also known back then as the seesaw press, and it really does build your deltoids up in that respect, and also in the respect that you balance out the musculature and pressing power of each side. Now, one of the last exercises mentioned is one that is not necessarily seen nowadays, and that is a dumbbell crucifix. You basically start off, as the model here is showing, with arms extended out to the side. It can be down or slightly up, and then you actually raise overhead, and your arms should be, as you can see, in that neutral position, and you raise overhead. It is not like done nowadays where you basically stand. It is not a dumbbell lateral raise where you stand with the dumbbells at your thighs and lift only to shoulder level. Here you actually start with the dumbbells at shoulder level or lower, as shown in this diagram, but not at your thighs, and go all the way up overhead. The idea is that the dumbbells should look like, when held out straight to the sides, it should look like you are crucified, hence the name, the dumbbell crucifix. The idea is to actually start in a difficult position, that is the arms extended out to the sides, and lift the dumbbells overhead. This is a very hard thing to do, and again, dumbbells, the poundages that you would use would be very, very low, but the effect on the deltoids would be very great in that they are lifting from a very uncomfortable position. There's great stress placed on the musculature, and so I'm sure a lot of strength would be gained from this kind of exercise. The crucifix, again, is not used nowadays. This is a real silver and bronze era technique, and I personally myself would love to be able to use it soon. So I hope you've enjoyed this video on George Jowett's recommendations for increasing your pressing power. I leave you with this awesome shot from the Gold's Gym, the original Gold's Gym, where Arnold Schwarzenegger is barbell pressing there, seated with Dave Draper behind him. Damn, I wish I could be Dave Draper spotting Arnold there. Arnold looks like he's really struggling with those last few reps, pushing out those reps. And anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave me your comments, and thank you for watching. This is the Golden Era Bookworm. Bye for now.